I'm trying to be the what we call it, the administrator for a second. So if everyone could mute your microphones, and then we're going to make sure that Miss Allen is online. Okay, she's there. You can unmute your microphone, Miss Allen.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining, everyone. We appreciate you for continually being here and being engaged. The Municipal Project is a project that we just came up with to try to help people, because we see folks running for office all the time, and there's just a few other things that they need that find a little extra. You know, I didn't have a lot of mentorship when I ran, so I was like, you know, there's some things that people need to know, they should know. And in the Mississippi Municipal League does a great job of giving some classes on municipal government. But I learned just as much in the hallway as I did in the classroom, learning from people who had experience and practical application in this profession. And for those of you who were in our first session, we learned from Mr. Johnny Ford, who taught us that we want to turn this into a profession, not just, I want to run for office and let me do this, but look at it like a profession that you take seriously, that takes discipline, practice, and study in order to be successful in it. So whether you're tuned in online, whether you're tuned in on Facebook, YouTube, or the Zoom portion, there are people from all across the country engaged in this practice. And we just appreciate everyone for continuing to help out, continuing to participate every Saturday morning. So I just want to thank Dr. Delia Carthan and Pastor James Hull for helping structure this out. I'm not the leader of it. I'm just, you know, doing my part to bring good people and connect good people to good people. And that's what you're going to find as you go through your journey in municipal government. Today's speaker is Attorney Monica Davis Allen. She's a native of Jackson, Mississippi. Ms. Allen is a proud product of Jackson Public Schools. She attended Tougaloo College, where she obtained her Bachelor's of Science degree in biology in 2002. She was drawn to Tougaloo College for their world-renowned science program. While attending Tougaloo, Ms. Allen served as an ambassador as president of the Gamma. Please don't hurt me, Dr. J, or Ms. Allen, if I say this wrong. Omicron chapter? Omicron chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and as an SGA member and or participant. During her last semester at Tougaloo College, Ms. Allen decided not to attend medical school, but to attend law school instead, and I'm glad she did. She received her law degree, a Juris Doctor, from Loyola University in New Orleans School of Law, in the top third of her class in 2005. Ms. Allen recently received her master's in public administration from Belhaven University in 2013 while working full-time as a government attorney. Ms. Allen currently serves as an interim city attorney for the city of Jackson, Mississippi, a position she previously served and was confirmed in that capacity from 2014 to 2017. She's the youngest ever to serve in that position and the youngest in-house city attorney in the state. Ms. Allen prides herself in her service and commitment to others. She realizes that giving is more important than receiving, and that passing along her knowledge, experience, and wisdom to others will allow them to reach further and achieve their dreams. Ms. Allen is a proud wife of Aaron Allen and mother of 3 children, Morgan, Sean, and Aaron Abigail. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, good. She's also a lifelong resident of the city of Jackson. Ms. Allen is a member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Jack and Jill of America Incorporated, Jackson Chapter, the Junior League of Jackson, Mississippi Bar Association, Magnolia Bar Association, Capital Area Bar Association. Ms. Allen is also recognized as one of the Mississippi Business Journal's top 50 under 40. Ms. Allen previously served on the board of directors for the International Municipal Lawyers Association and First for Mississippi in over 15 years, and the youngest. So she's one of our rising stars here in Mississippi, ladies and gentlemen. And on a personal note, the two most important positions in every municipal government are your city attorney and your city clerk. And those two folks are the ones that keep you out of jail, because there are a lot of people that make mistakes, intentional or unintentional, but the consequences are the same. Whether you know the law or don't know the law, the consequences of it are just the same. So I just want to welcome Ms. Monica Allen, and can you say a few words about yourself that I may have missed, and then we can start just a general overview of municipal law.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I want to thank councilman / legislator / all around government guru, as I refer to him, the Keith stands for inviting me to speak with you all on this morning. I think the introduction encompasses basically everything about me. This morning, though, this will be kind of an overview. I want it to be like very personal, very interactive. If you have any questions, whether it's related to the material that I will present, or if it's just questions that you have, something that you may be dealing with. Of course, I have to give, the caveat that, of course, I'm not giving legal advice. So, but any questions you have from a basic or general perspective, then I will just use me as your tool this morning. So we'll just go ahead and dive straight into.
Before we do, let me just make one comment, Ms. Allen. The relationship you have with your city attorney will save you so much headache and heartache as you go through this process. So I encourage everyone, as soon as you start this process, start meeting folks in your city halls, the first stop you need to make is at your city attorney's office. Of course, you got to get your bond from them, but then you have to start walking through the legalities of it to know where you are and to know the structure of how things work inside your city government when it comes to how the meetings are ran and those things, because your city attorney is going to guide you through this. So I just want to say that, and then you can proceed from there, Ms. Allen.
And that is a very great point, because it's always been a point that I've made since serving as a municipal attorney, which I started as what I say a baby attorney with the city of Jackson. I've been with the city since 2007, and so I've always made a point to form relationships with my council members, with the executive branch, with the departments, to ensure that I'm used as a tool as they make decisions on a day-to-day basis, to ensure that they're in line with whatever local ordinances, state or federal statutes, so that one, they are covered, and two, that my ultimate client is covered, which is my municipality. So you want us to proceed?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay. So just beginning with a brief overview of municipal government. Our government uses what we refer to as a shared government system, meaning that it's a combination of the general national government with the regional governments. So, of course, we know the United States is divided into states and local municipalities. What we're going to focus in on today are municipalities. So while we tend to associate the law with the Constitution and the federal government, we must understand that state and local governments play a crucial role in the legal system. So, of course, the federal and state government have exclusive powers and ability to make laws that can exist concurrently to create a balance of power. However, states are generally free to create and enforce their own laws so long as they are constitutional. That same theory applies to local governments. So I wanted to begin kind of with a definition of what municipal law is. So municipal law is the law specific to a particular city. and we refer to cities quite often are interchanged as municipalities or cities. And the government bodies who those cities or counties are governed by. So these laws are enforced locally in addition to state and federal laws. And a municipality is defined as a city or town that has corporate status and local government. And local and municipal law addresses much of our day-to-day operations, covering a wide variety of topics and issues. And of course, it goes back to what Mr. Stamp stated, which is why it's very important for you as government officials to remain in close contact and relationship with your particular city attorneys. So the issues that you will see, or the legal issues that you may see from time to time, may include things from zoning, various policies, police power, streets and infrastructure, property taxes, etc. And so that's where you and your municipal attorney will work hand in hand in making sure that when you're drafting this legislation, or when you're executing this legislation, that you're doing it within the bounds of your authority, which we refer to quite regularly as your statutory authority. That's what we refer to as in Mississippi, but it may vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But your statutory authority is the power in which you, as as an elected official, that's the realm that you operate in. And so when you're creating law, which we refer to as ordinances on a local level, when you're creating law and creating policy, you have to stay within the realms of your statutory authority. So just a few terms that it would be good for you all to know as local government officials. And I talked just a moment ago about some issues that you all may come up or may have to deal with, which includes zoning. So you'll hear things like land use. And land use is basically how you all govern the purposes for which land may be used. So land use falls under the caveat of zoning. That is something that you would definitely have to deal with as a local local official. Municipal corporation, the definition is the legal structure assigned to a municipality which allows it to buy and sell property and sue or be sued. That's incredibly important. So that is something when you assume office. I don't know if all of you all are currently serving in particular positions, or if you're going to be serving in particular positions. That's the first thing you need to look at, is whether or not your municipality is actually incorporated, because once it's incorporated, then it brings into a lot of other issues that you may be dealt with. And of course, as an attorney, we're going to hone in on the ability to be sued or to sue. And so, of course, we don't like to be sued. So we're going to do everything in our power to provide you all with the appropriate advice and moving forward on our issues. But that goes back to another key point that Mr. Stamps made. The communication has to be there with your attorney, so that we can avoid certain situations and so that we can cover you. Police power is another definition you need to know. And basically, it's the legal term for the ability to use certain powers to regulate the behavior of a municipality's residents. And so your police powers, depending on your statutory authority that is given by your state, may be very vast, or they may be very limited. So that's something that you, of course, would need to get accustomed with. And lastly, I mentioned ordinances, and basically, of course, that's the technical term for the law issued by a municipality. So I'll pause there. Are there any questions as it relates to just that introductory portion and definitions?
Ms. Ellen, land use to me, is one of the most important things that we do, and that anybody will do, because once you put a building somewhere, that building's going to be there for 60 or 70 years.
Right.
So let's break this up into sections based on what I consider importance.
Okay, great.
And talk about land use and zoning. Well, because I didn't see any questions. Anybody got a hand raised? I don't see anybody with a hand raised. What's that?
I didn't see any.
Okay.
The recording has stopped.
Okay.
This meeting is being recorded.
There we go. I pressed the wrong button, y'all. I apologize for that. But land use is the most important thing that we do. And a lot of times when folks are running for office and they're not the incumbent, sometimes the incumbents talk over their head and it make it seem like they're incompetent. And that's why we wanted to just talk about some of these things a little bit more specific. Mr. Young, you had a question?
Yeah, just recently, I live in Ridgeland, Mississippi. Just recently, they annexed a piece of land, which is going to bring in 345 families.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work in terms of, they're saying that they're going to be able to vote in this upcoming election.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work when they annex land, and how does it affect the community?
So typically one, annexation is done through a court process, and it's governed strictly by statute. And so once you go through, actually follow all the steps of annexing a portion of land, then that particular portion, and in that particular instance that you presented, that means that they're bringing in, so they've annexed additional land, so they're bringing in additional land to expand the incorporated limits of that particular city. So when they do that, they're bringing in, you mentioned how many families, Mr. Young? They're really looking more so at households than they're looking at
345.
345.
Right. And so basically, so let's say, and they probably got it from maybe an unincorporated portion, maybe in the county. So they've gone through the process, through the court system. They've been, it's been adjudicated. That means that an order has been issued allowing them to bring in additional area into the incorporated limits of the city. And so basically it's more so, and like Mr. Stamps, I'm used to calling him Councilman Stamps, but Mr. Stamps stated, that goes back to, affecting your zoning. It's going to affect your land use. It's going to affect your tax base. It's going to have a lot of implications. And
let me just dive in for a second. So
yeah,
when you absorb more population,
right,
there's two ways to grow your tax base. You can expand your limits, but what you engulf, you also now own it. You can, it's like your neighbor's house. If you take ownership of your neighbor's house, it's yours. So whatever problems and code enforcement, you take on all that liability. Those houses aren't built to your specifications. Those water sewer lines, that infrastructure that's in place, you absorb all the responsibility for now maintaining that. And so that's what the city of Ridgeland is doing. And several other cities annexed. Jackson's annexed over the years, and you absorb that additional capacity to take care of inside your incorporated limits of your city, just like the rest of your city now.
And it's also important to note, and you can probably speak better to this from a policy standpoint, typically when you're annexing, it's a plan associated with that annex to not only grow your municipality, but it also may be a plan to absorb some resources and some tangibles from maybe an unincorporated portion or an incorporated portion of another municipality. And so as an elected official, it's very important for you all to keep your eyes on the prize, for lack of a better way of putting it, because it could be a greater plan in place that could detrimentally affect your municipality. So you have to really stay involved and stay informed in those particular proceedings. Don't just think, oh, this is an annexation and it's just going to affect Jackson. Well, no, it may not just affect Jackson, because Jackson may have a plan to expand that may end up affecting Vision or Madison, or, you know, and I'm just using it as an example since you brought it up. But just these are those kind of issues that you have to be very mindful of, and not just let it, fly by, because you'll look up and you'll have a greater issue on your hands that your municipal attorney won't be able to, help you resolve at that point. Because once it's adjudicated by the court, then that'll be a whole nother proceeding that will have to take place that you may or may not be successful in.
Again, land is the most important thing that you have. Well, second most, behind your people. You got your people, and then you got your property. And, once you grow, sometimes municipalities agree with land use, and sometimes municipalities argue over other growths that may have competing interests. So, we didn't oppose the annexation originally. We just watched it, because there's some issues we agree with, some issues that we just kind of on 50-50 on. For full disclosure, we opposed what would do that in Byram? It was an annexation in Byram that they pushed for. And then the city of Jackson pushed against, because we provide services to these other areas. And, so we have to work through those issues between governments. But you can proceed, Ms. Allen.
Okay, well, so did you want me to proceed to zoning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so your local zoning ordinances can apply to both businesses as well as residential areas. And of course, these ordinances are created for public safety and health concerns. And municipalities have the power to make laws on which geographic areas may be used for specific purposes, such as indicating where a new neighborhood can be built, or dictate an area is for industrial use only. These ordinances can get extremely specific and include regulations for dimensions, placement of utilities, parking, types of buildings, and more. So going back to land use, your zoning is, as Mr. Stamp stated, zoning is of the utmost importance, because it dictates really the land use and the functionality of your city. And so as local elected officials, you all get to determine, in representing your people, you all get to determine how your city is structured. And you do that through your zoning ordinances and your land use.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that portion? Okay, I'm going to back up a little bit though, because I want to break down when we talk about local government and we talk about municipal law, we have to look at how a municipality and its governing body is structured. So typically you're going to have a local city or town where it's either a council, a board of aldermen, or something very similar, depending on the jurisdiction, state, etc. And they're going to be the ones that are charged with creating the legislation for that particular municipality. And so it's important because, first and foremost, you all are typically residents of that municipality, right? And so you all have the greatest control over municipal law. You all are the ones that create it, and you are the ones that review it. You are the ones that amend it. You are the ones that in all aspects control it. And so you have to be very mindful in the legislation that you create to make sure that it's something that can be effectuated, and something that is going to be positive and for your residents and protect your residents. Because at the end of the day, you have to protect the public health and welfare of your citizens. And so you have a vast amount of power in determining how to do that. And so I think that's important to note that, and Mr. Stamp states it all the time, that you all as the legislative portion of the governing body, you all have a lot of power in determining how your municipality operates on behalf of your residents. And a lot of that is done through ordinances, which are your local laws.
Mhm.
So I wanted to kind of hone in on that just as a fundamental principle.
Okay, any questions on that portion? Because how your town is structured in your form of government, along with your charter, is going. Those are the first documents that you read, and you really have to become a municipal nerd to be successful. One of my good friends told me that if you're in municipal government and you don't read a lot, you don't study a lot, you can't do a lot. You just talk. So, could you go over Robert's Rule of Order? Because that's the first step when they start participating in their meetings.
Sure. So Robert's Rules of Order is basically how you govern the procedures in your particular municipality and in your meetings. And so, just as an example, in the city of Jackson, our legislative body did create ordinance which governs how, like, the flow of our meetings, certain protocols and procedures within our meetings. But how those things that they do not cover in those particular ordinances, then it's governed by Robert's Rules of Order. So my recommendation, of course, consult with your city attorney on any issues. If you ever have any questions on how to proceed, consult with them. But know for yourself Robert's Rules of Order. They have the pocket edition as well as the larger edition that is very thorough. That's going to teach you the fundamentals, of how you proceed through your meetings, how you conduct your meetings, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, it'll teach you from how to set forth a motion, how to adopt an ordinance, how you move to reconsider an item if it fails, what determines whether the item passes or fails, how you break a tie in order for an item to pass. All of those things are covered in the Robert's Rules of Order. So I would highly recommend that you have a personal copy and keep a personal copy with you at all times so that you can refer back. Because as Mr. Stamp stated, you have to be informed on, yourself. It's a personal decision to remain informed. If not, then you will not be representing your constituents to the best of your ability. And it's only so much that your attorney can advise you of during a meeting without being disrupted. So those things you would have to kind of learn and become accustomed to on your own. So I would recommend that each of you purchase a copy of Robert's Rules of Order and just become familiar with it.
Mm-hmm. And you're totally right about that. Robert's Rule of Order is the backbone. So you can proceed, Ms. Allen, with your next portion.
Okay, I was just going to cover a few examples of what you may run into or be faced with as a local government official. Because we tend to think that, being in the public sector, that we're not affected as those that may be in the private sector, but really you are. and you're probably affected more so than they are. And so it can, we talked about zoning issues that may arise, but you also may have issues with your business community. Then that brings in, forms of business law that intertwine with municipal law. So whether it's a small or large business, your municipality may have unique rules and ordinances related to those businesses and their operations. Most jurisdictions on the local level have specific rules that apply to even starting a business and may require you to obtain a license or file other necessary documents. So again, that would be those ordinances, those policies, those procedures. Those are things that you would have to become familiar with immediately upon assuming any local governmental office. You can go also to, some don't realize that, municipalities also, you're going to govern, property taxes. You're going to govern the collection of taxes unless you delegate it or have statutory authority to delegate it to your accountant to collect it. But you set the taxes and you govern them. And so, while some taxes are collected, like I said, at the state level, municipal taxes are collected to help fund the local government. That's how your local government is going to operate, through the collection of funds. Through the collection of taxes. So depending on your location, a local government entity responsible for this role may be referred to as a tax assessor, tax collector, or sometimes collector of revenue. So that's just something to, put in your back pocket. When you're in local government, you have a vast array of issues that you will have to govern, that you will have to deal with. And again, I reiterate the importance of having that kind of relationship with your city attorney, to where you all can discuss these issues and determine the best way to proceed under the statutory authority that you're given.
Okay. So let's as we're going to downhill slide of today's class, let's look at some more practical implications.
Okay.
How do people stay out of jail, and how do people go to jail? Because there are a lot of people who go to jail in this business. A lot of people who pay fines, a lot of people who get punitive actions against them. So we've done a little of the informative portion to just kind of talk over, just give a basic understanding. But what makes the Municipal Project unique is we talk about those things that the Municipal League doesn't really dive into. So how do people go to jail or get infractions inside municipal government? And then we'll talk about ways to safeguard you from going to jail or get some kind of negative infraction. Right.
So over my course of right at 13, 14 years serving in municipal government, the most common areas that I've seen where it's been infractions is some kind of, is dealing with monetary, how you deal with monetary, I hate to say issues again, but how you deal with the processing of monies. And so as a local government official, there are specific, no matter what your jurisdiction is, there are specific rules you abide by and how you handle the receipts of monies and how you handle the issuance of monies. And so, and there's always a checks and balance. And so I have seen, where it's innocent things. So a municipality wants to do something for youth, and they want to take youth on a trip to experience something that they may not experience in their local communities. Well, if that particular expenditure is not allowed on the statute, then you'll be paying back their money. If it's allowed on the statute, but you didn't follow the proper procedures and get an authorization to actually undertake that particular endeavor, then you're going to be paying back some money and or going to jail.
So let me just put a pin right there for a second.
Okay.
And it's determined on how you vote.
Correct.
So one of my mentors told me, you don't go to jail for voting no.
Right.
You don't pay money back for voting no. Only the people who vote yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's particularly with the claims docket. That's how you pay the bills.
Right.
And when you vote for something, you're voting for not just this issue or this contract or this whatever. You're voting affirming the process that got it to you. So let's say this contract to pave this street is going to this vendor. Sometimes you vote for it or against it, not because of the contract. Sometimes you may have issue with the process.
Mm-hmm.
And if that process is not done correctly, who has to pay that money back? Mr. Attorney.
The legislative body.
The legislative body.
Voted for it.
Right. So so don't just frame it into the item that you see on your agenda. You're also voting, affirming the process that brought it to the agenda, because the contractor doesn't have to pay the money back, and neither does the mayor under our form of government.
Right.
The only people who pay the money back are the ones who vote yes. Correct.
And I think that's a great point that we probably need to delve into just a little deeper. And so it is, I cannot stress how important it is to read. And so in our particular form of government, we present our council members with an agenda pack of all agenda items. And it should include our background information, all the necessary information they need to make an informed decision and make an informed vote. But if you do not read the information that's presented to you and you just vote just based on what is verbally presented to you in a meeting, then you could end up voting yes on something that is not in line with statutory authority, that was not, that the appropriate process was not followed. And I mean, it could be the most minute thing that may not have been done. But if you vote yes on that item and the auditor comes in or any vendor challenges whatever action that was taken, however, you're going to be the one that is going to be responsible for it. Not the individuals that didn't follow the process, not have how minute it may be. You all will be the ones to have to be responsible for that. And your bonds may or may not cover the amount that you're responsible for. So that's a very important tip, Mr. Sims.
See, for me, I look at everything as, am I gonna have to pay this money back, or am I gonna have to go to jail? Because I'm not going to jail for anybody.
Right.
And I don't make $300 a week as I bring home on the city council. And you got millions and millions of dollars floating through here. So I just can't. I've had friends who have done things inappropriate, like the Mayor Terry. You remember the Mayor Terry who
right.
Good guy. I mean, real good guy. I served on the Central Mississippi Planning Development District Board with him. He was driving the city vehicle. The city vehicle started tearing up. The Board of Aldermen wouldn't pay for it to get fixed. So he started paying out of his own pocket. And then he started paying for the city car to get fixed. Now, that's not necessarily, that's kind of on the verge illegal of paying out of your pocket to get the city car fixed. But you're the mayor. The town's doesn't have the money to pay to get the car fixed. He reached in his pocket, paid to get the car fixed out of his pocket, which that's illegal too, right? But that's not what he got in trouble for.
Right.
He got in trouble for when he stopped using that vehicle, because it just tore all the way up. And his personal vehicle that he was using for city business tore up. He spent the same amount of money fixing his car, but with city money this time, fixing his car. And so he would have get 10 years.
He got substantial time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
Time.
we talking about like less than $3,000. You got 10 years.
Right.
Even the mayor up there in North Mississippi, who pumped the gas with the city, who used the city gas card,
Hmm.
you know, I think he got 5 years
Right.
for some gas.
Hmm.
So, you know, it may seem nuanced. It may seem, because this stuff flows fast, ladies and gentlemen. Once you get elected, this thing is moving, especially if you're in a bigger municipality. It is moving, you know,
Right.
and I want y'all to just impress upon you that I love all y'all. It breaks my heart when I see somebody is going through and their family is going through these kinds of issues. So for me, you know, I don't care what the relationship is. If it ain't clean, I ain't voting.
Well, and I think that's another important little nugget of wisdom is not to make sure you don't commingle private and public. And that's whether with the use of your cell phone, because now they've gotten to a point where if you use your personal cell phone to conduct city business, then that now makes it a public record. So, you know, it's little things like that, you know, big no-nos. Don't commingle public funds, public resources. It can be the most minute thing, the use of a public office space for a private purpose. I mean, if they come in and audit and they find out, you know, who knows? It may be a fine or it may be jail time for simply utilizing a public space for a private purpose. So that's a good nugget of wisdom. I think I said that right. To not commingle public and personal. If you don't commingle, you have no issues.
That's why I don't even go to City Hall. I work from the field. I come when it's time for the meeting and I leave. You know, you have to put some safeguards in place, ladies and gentlemen. Like I got council colleagues who don't text or email, but they have the clerk's office print their emails out and they'll tell them how to respond to it. I mean, you got to put some safeguards in place because it's not until you get deposed that you see how serious this stuff is. The first time they called me down at the FBI office and ask you questions, you realize how real these situations are. Could you tell a few more stories about some things that people have endured and gone through for some of the most, you know?
Sure. So another good rule of thumb is be careful with vendors and how you communicate with vendors. My personal rule as city attorney, I don't meet with vendors. I've had vendors to, you know, say, hey, let me take you to dinner. Hey, can we meet over here and talk? Or, you know, well, what information is coming out? You know, and it can be the most innocent questions. You know, you perceive them to be innocent, but they're really just trying to get information out of you so that they can, you know, maybe submit a proposal, get a contract, anything like that. And everything you say to them, they can use and manipulate in order to do so. And if anybody challenges again or has any issue with it, or find out you all even had a conversation, or they saw you in a restaurant eating with a particular vendor, and then that vendor ended up, you know, being awarded a contract shortly thereafter, it even gives the appearance of impropriety. Then that brings up an ethics issue, you know, it can also bring up, you know, criminal issues with your state auditors, things of that nature. So you have to be very careful in how you deal with vendors, contractors, how you deal with them in public. You have to be very aware of the appearance that you give once you become a local elected official. Because once you become a local elected official, you are no longer just Monica or the Keither. You are Councilman Allen, Councilman Stamps. That's who you are, and that's how people view you. You become a public figure. So everything that you do is going to be monitored. So just be extremely mindful of your interactions, and especially with vendors and contractors or potential vendors and contractors.
Okay. Any questions about that portion? So we're going to get ready to wrap up in just a few minutes. I don't want to take up all your day, but I want to impress upon you how important this portion is. Mr. Young, you got a question? I see your hand raised there.
Yeah, well, I guess one of the things is we want to be able to spread the wealth among minority business. So how do you do that and not get in trouble when you see a minority business that's just as good as any other business? So how do you go about doing that and not get in trouble?
Well, I'll let Ms. Allen say the legal portion, and I'll talk about how I do
it. Okay. So just for an example, we have an office within our economic development department, and so we're able to certify minority businesses, and so or certify them to do business within the city. And so I would just recommend that if you wanted to, share the wealth, if you wanted to ensure that minority businesses are brought to the table and are given the opportunity to be awarded contracts, that if it's not a process, create a process to where they can be certified through the municipality. And so once they're certified, they can go on that list and they can start just submitting, proposals for particular opportunities. Now, at the end of the day, when a request for proposal is issued, there's nothing that stops you from doing a PSA, from doing a town hall meeting, from doing a flyer, from making a phone call to say, hey, this opportunity is out there. There's nothing that stops you from doing that. But you just have to be very careful in how you interact with them to where it doesn't give the appearance that you're steering a contract or you're steering work their way. You want to give the appearance that you're just ensuring that they have the opportunity to participate and to submit any kind of proposal or contract with the city.
I appreciate that portion. What I respond to contractors is pretty simple. I tell them, I'm going to make the playing field as level as I possibly can so that you can compete. From my seat, from my one city council seat of 7 inside of a structure of a mayor council form of government, I'm going to make the playing field as level as I can. Now, in some cases, I still can't make it as level as possible because I don't have all the information. I don't have all the background knowledge of, and I'm not in charge of the people who affect the process. But my job is to make the playing field as level as possible for everybody, because it's not just about awarding the contract to somebody. Well, when you award a contract to somebody, you got 5 or 6 other companies on that list who didn't get awarded. So now you got 5 people that look at that process and say, well, hold on, I'm going to sue you because this piece in the process was wrong. So that's why I keep harping on the process. It's not just about the contract, it's about the process that brought it there. So as a local elected official, you can create an EBO ordinance and you can put some teeth in that ordinance that's backed up by a disparity study that articulates the disparity of minority businesses in the contracting process. That's one of the things I've been pushing for years, but I can't get, the mayor to do a disparity study so that we can put the proper teeth in place so that minority businesses can be legally able to fight the court cases, because it's not just about getting a contract. It's about when we talking about big money, we ain't talking about little money. We're talking about the city of Jackson. We got, I don't know, several hundred millions of dollars of contracts to go out the door every year between the city and the school board and all those places. So every time you award a contract, you got 4 or 5 people who grind through that process, and they say, okay, this wasn't done right, this wasn't done right. Now they, go back and forth. So you're that balance in the middle as a board of alder person or a mayor. You're that balance. So our job is to make sure that it's done legal, it's done ethically right. And if you get tangled up in these lawsuits, it just, because your job is already going fast. The more lawsuits that you're personally tied up in or named in, first it hurts you politically or personally because your family, once you get tied up in these lawsuits, it's just like an anchor. You're trying to run forward. You got a big anchor on your foot because those things are, you're constantly having to go to hearings and depositions and asking questions and all that. So that's why I just stay clean of it all. Make sure the process is done right. Sometimes it takes you making some folks mad, but at the end of the day, they're going to respect you. I made plenty of folks mad. Miss Jonah can tell you, I made plenty of folks mad.
Alan?
No, excuse me. I'm sorry, Miss Allen. Miss Allen will tell you, I made plenty of folks mad. But at the end of the day, there's a mutual level of respect there. Mm-hmm. And my final point before I turn it back over to Miss Allen is being able to finance your own life outside of, needing campaign donations and all that kind of stuff. You have to be able to finance your own life. So look at your salary for your municipal government and make sure that you can finance your life so you can be autonomous. I don't care if you got to cut grass. I don't care what you got to do, but make your money outside of this so that you don't have to. That's how people get caught up. They get caught up because they can't finance their life. And once you can finance your life outside of government, because the government's going to take a lot of your time up, but you got to have a financing mechanism in place that, for me, I couldn't do this. If I wasn't retired and if I wouldn't have these other revenue sources coming in, then I couldn't operate how I operate. So my message to you today is really find out, work out how you can finance your life outside of municipal government. So this can just be truly service. And I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Al.
Well, and that brings up another instant that you all just need to be clear of and wary of. The most innocent and sometimes not innocent situations can leave you with jail time. We had, and this is public knowledge, but I've seen where council members may have, that contract may have been awarded. And after that contract was awarded, the council member did business, personal business, with a particular contractor. Well, of course, that's a no-no. And they ended up doing jail time, substantial jail time, as well as being precluded from serving in any kind of elected position, again, within the state. So that goes back to what I stated before. You have to be very careful with your interactions with your vendors and your contractors or proposed vendors and proposed contractors. So that's another instance that you need to be wary of.
And if you get some money, put it on your campaign finance report. If you get any, and then talk about, as we're going to wrap up, Ms. Joyner. I know it's been an hour. We can talk about this for days, but talk about the disclosures that Mississippi requires from the ethics and the campaign finance piece, just briefly, and then we're going to open back up for questions.
So when you say disclosures,
every year we have to do the little disclosure to say who you're doing business with.
Right. So you're required to, and this is in Mississippi, but I'm sure in our jurisdictions in some form or format that you have to disclose, all campaign contributions, who you're doing business with. And I think ours, you have to report it if it's over, $200?
Right.
You have to do an annual report that includes certain information as far as who you're doing business with, any funds that you've received. And so anything that, like Mr. Stem stated, anything that you receive, report it. And honestly, I wouldn't, no matter how minute it is, I'd report it just to be on the safe side. Because what you don't want is for your state auditor or any kind of investigatory body to come in and start digging through finances and come up with something that, you just failed to report. You didn't mean to do it. It was very innocent, but they don't look at it like that. They look at what's on the paper, what was submitted, what was reported. And if you didn't report it, then to them, it wasn't done properly. And it's going to be some ramifications to it. And it could end up with some jail time, honestly.
So as y'all are running your campaigns, you don't have to accept all checks.
Right.
I mean, I've sent checks back to people. I know it sounds wild, it sounds strange, but everybody just can't send me a check. I've even known one elected official who's pretty prominent in the state. He doesn't accept checks after, and this is kind of on the political side, not the legal side, but if you wasn't with him from the beginning of his campaign, when he wins the election, don't send him a check. He'll tear the check up and mail it back to you. So how you run, think of it as you're running your institution.
Mm-hmm.
And how you run your institution matters, and just be mindful of what's going on. Have your folks take a look at some of this stuff, and when you find out about something, don't be afraid to send a check back to people or refund them their money once you do find something out later on. So that's why these finances are just critical moving forward. We'll give you some last words, Ms. Allen, before we get ready to wrap up.
I see something in the chat.
Oh, I see.
Oh, okay.
she said, I guess she said when I done pissed people off before. She said, yes, you do.
Yeah. That's exactly what she was referring to. Well, I'm always a tool just for general information purposes. I love what I do. I've taken the time to study what I do, and I try to do it in excellence. And so I just appreciate you all just tuning in this morning, listening, being engaged. If I can be of any assistance, of course, contact Mr. Stamps, and I'll make myself available. But it's been a privilege this morning to speak to you all.
Well, I appreciate you taking time. I know your daughter has a birthday today. We want to wish her a happy birthday, and you got to do all. 16. Sweet 16. Yeah, I know it's a very special one for you to take time out on a special day like this to spend some time with us this morning. It's been greatly appreciated. And she truly does take her profession seriously. You have to have a level of trust. I've seen city attorneys stand up there, not Ms. Allen, but I've seen city attorneys stand up there and not give you all the information because it's in the packet and they know you're not reading it, right? So just make sure that you're not voting on what people say. You're voting on what's on that paper. I've seen folks sit there and articulate one thing and have a whole different thing inside that packet. And then you turn around and say, well, you voted for it. Well, that's not what he said. Well, he said this. No. What's in the packet and what are the laws behind what's in the packet is what's critical. So just make sure you read. If your kitchen table isn't junky the night before council meeting, that's a problem. You have to read. I posted a copy of the Mississippi Blue Book in the chat. Great resource there. And also the other state laws. Going into the Muni Code is also important. So continue to read and research, but run your campaigns. Today's Saturday. It's a good day out there. You can go out there and hit it, but hopefully you can go out there and speak from a little more depth and clarity of the positions that you're running for. As we go through this, I want all of you to be successful. I really do, because there's some good folks on this call. There's some good folks that are trying to do good stuff for your community. But, one of the frustrations I had was when I was running is it was just some information I didn't know. And folks would talk over your head because they knew more, and then it would make them seem more competent. Well, at that juncture, they may have been more competent, but that shouldn't preclude good people from stepping forward because you've educated yourself in a few other realms. And that's what the Municipal Project is designed to do, is to give you some extra information on how to safeguard yourself, safeguard your family, because you're going to have to endure to serve. If you didn't want to do this, like, in Jackson, we make $300 a week as a take-home pay. I get one check for $558 and another one for $638. So that's about $1,200 a month that I take home from all of this. And a lot of people think they see us on TV all the time, think we make a whole lot of money. We don't. But the ones I know who are doing it successful in an above approach operate with a certain modality of operation. And if you're Black and an elected official in Mississippi, you are constantly under investigation. They even locking up white folks. So when they start locking up white people, you know what you think they're doing to Black. So I'm just being real. They're being looked at. So if you're in municipal government, you are being looked at. But it's important. Local government, to me, is the most important level of government in this country. And this country cannot lose local government. People don't have a federal government right now they can really trust. A lot don't have a state governments they can really trust. So that we have to fight for the trust in municipal government amongst our constituents. So are any more questions or comments? I see a whole lot of good stuff, valuable information. Thank you, Attorney. Man, say it. And I just appreciate y'all for tuning in every week. Thank you, Dr. Carthan, for putting the structure in place so we can even know how to do all of this. And y'all, it's time to go hit it now. Let's go win some elections. Again, Ms. Allen, thank you so much. And thank you. I don't say this enough publicly, but you've committed your life to municipal government. You've committed your life to this level. And when folks find their niche and they commit to it, you've been through the ups and downs, the smiles and frowns, and you stood behind that microphone with grace and elegance, even when I be pissed off at you. And
I'm pissed off at you.
But over the course of the years, you've been a rock for our city. And I just appreciate you for your stance and your approach to how you do it, because they're the referee. Sometimes I'll look over there and say, "You're not gonna throw a flag? You're not gonna." I'm like Tom Brady. Oh, come on now, you can't let them do this. That's what the municipal attorneys for, to govern everybody or to give legal advice to everybody on a fair basis and a balanced basis.
Right.
Correct. Some people think that the city attorney works for the mayor. No, the city attorney works for the city.
Yes.
All right. Not just the council or just the mayor, it's for the city attorney. And so just make sure that you are your board attorney, maybe references that depending on your jurisdiction that you're in, but just make sure that you get a good city attorney. That is critical. We've got a question in the chat. And you can unmute your microphone if you have a question. Where did you say we can find the blue book? If you scroll to the top of the chat window, I put a link to the current blue book that's on the Mississippi Secretary of State's website. If you scroll all the way up to the top of the chat, there's a link there. It says Mississippi Blue Book.
Councilman Stamps, I must have joined after you did that. And with
okay,
Zoom,
let me repost it. Okay, let me repost it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how are you today, ma'am?
I'm well. It's a beautiful day. Thank you. How are you all?
I am well.
This has been a great session. I appreciate it.
Okay, let me see and make sure I'm sending this to everyone here. Y'all gotta pray for me. I'm still learning a lot of these processes here. Okay, I think it posted. All right, but
You did.
okay.
Thank you.
So read your blue book. Go through. You don't have to read the whole thing immediately, but just the pertinent sections that regard your form of government and general knowledge. So just continue to educate yourselves. Dr. Carthan, do you have any comments you want to make?
No, this has really been a great session. I just want to thank you so much, Attorney Allen. You have shared some valuable information, and I know that it's going to come in good use. So thank you so much. And thank everyone for joining. And thank you, Councilman Stamp.
Okay, so it's campaign season. Y'all out there rocking and rolling. Everybody want to take you to dinner and all that kind of stuff. Now, I've been known as being the one that I'm going to pay for them. One guy, I was crazy because I always pay for them because that's a little thing,
Exactly.
That's one of those little things that people get caught up on. Let's go have a drink. Let me buy you a drink. I don't drink. I ain't. So let me give you another little nugget. I set aside one night a week to do all my talking. Everybody knows where I'm going to be, from my family, friends. Every Wednesday night at about 7:15, I'm going to be at Johnny T's. You want to come by and talk to me about something? Come on by. I buy my own dinner. You want to talk about something? Let's talk about it. But I don't go outside the framework of what's publicly knowledge and available. You don't tell folks stuff that the whole public don't know. Because once you do, they're going to submit their stuff and they'll say, well, how did they know to do that? How did they know to do that? And then they're going to tell it. They're going to tell it. And then it's going to come back to you that you gave information prior to it being publicly disseminated, and that gave them an unfair advantage. Remember, you don't get a respect to this stuff until you've been deposed, where they put that video camera in your face and they got a whole row of people on both sides, and everybody there has already dug through this whole case, and they're all asking you questions. You have to remember something from 3 years ago. When you make this phone call on this day, what was the conversation? And when you talk to this person, you don't remember this stuff. So if you have a standard operating procedure that you operate from, that you can defend. I don't have to remember. I know what I did. Did what was right. I did what was legal. So I don't have to remember every conversation. I don't have to like have a log book and all this kind of stuff. I follow the law. So again, thank you, Attorney Allen, for helping us out today. We appreciate everyone for tuning in.
My pleasure.
And everyone, again, go out, do great stuff, serve your community well. You're in that fight part of the campaign with 30 days out from the primaries, if you have a primary. So with 30 days out, this is all time for pushing. If you're in Mississippi, it's with 30 days out. If you're other places, you may be other distances to your campaigns. But in Mississippi, we're about 30 days out from the election. That's right. March 6th is April 6th is the primary. So elections are about name ID and voter turnout. So you got to do everything you can do to increase your name ID and the connection mentally of folks to you in public service. And then you got to get your vote out. So votes, volunteers, and donations should be your focus. So continue to focus on making sure that you knock on your doors, make your phone calls. The one who works the most wins the most. They can talk a whole lot about a lot of people, but I've seen some good people win when people didn't think they were going to win. You know, and I learned from a lot of good people, and hopefully this is helping you learn. But just go out there and outwork everybody and let the chips fall where they may. I love you. God bless, and Godspeed, everybody. We'll see y'all next week.